The alien planet stretched endlessly under two pale suns. Strange forests with towering, twisting trees cast long shadows across the jagged ground. Elias, the human explorer, moved cautiously through the underbrush, every sense alert. His ship had crashed months ago, leaving him stranded. He had long since learned that brute strength alone would not help him survive here. Humans were weaker in body than the dominant alien species, but Elias had something the aliens did: not cleverness, patience, and the ability to think ahead. Elias paused by a cluster of thorny bushes, his sharp eyes catching movement ahead. The alien tribe he had been observing was unlike anything he had ever seen. Their skin was thick and scaled, their eyes glinting with raw intelligence and instinctual cunning. He had watched from a distance as they hunted, fought, and lived as a pack. Among them was the chief, a towering figure of raw power, and beside him, his wife. The woman Leora stood out to Elias immediately. Even among such fierce creatures, there was something gentle about her. She moved with a grace that no human could match. But her eyes carried a weight, a sadness he could feel even from afar. She was caged in a life dictated by her husband, the chief, and the brutality of her people. Elias watched as she quietly tended to the tribe, following the strict rules, yet always seeming just a step apart from the violence surrounding her. Days of careful observation had taught Elias how the tribe lived, how they moved, and when they rested. The human's lack of raw strength had forced him to become a master of patience and cunning. He hunted only when necessary, avoided confrontations, and used the terrain to his advantage. He also kept a careful eye on Leora. He did not plan to harm her. Humans were not like the aliens. They did not conquer with force alone. They earned trust and respect, even from beings far stronger than themselves. One morning, as the suns rose behind jagged mountains, Elias saw an opportunity. The tribe had moved toward the river valley, leaving the dense forest lightly guarded. Leora moved beside the chief, her head bowed, following his every command. Elias's heart tightened. She did not deserve this life of fear. He could feel it, her quiet longing, even from the distance. He wanted to help, yes, but also, he did not want to be alone anymore. Months of isolation had left him longing for human connection, for someone who understood and could share his world, even if just a little. That night, he crept closer. Shadows hid his movements as he studied the camp from a safe distance. Fires crackled, alien voices murmured in strange, guttural tones, and Leora sat alone near a small stream, her face pale in the firelight. She hummed softly, a tune Elias could not recognize but somehow understood, of quiet rebellion against her life. Elias swallowed hard. He knew abducting her would be dangerous, maybe deadly, but he could not bear the thought of another lonely night. His mind raced with plans. How could he move her without harm? How could he avoid the tribe's warriors, who were as fast and deadly as tigers? His fingers brushed the small knife at his belt. Not to fight, he reminded himself. To protect. To survive. When dawn arrived, he made his move. The forest was alive with birdsong and the distant roar of alien creatures. Using the underbrush as cover, Elias approached the camp. He moved silently, every step calculated. He saw Leora rise and step toward the river, gathering water for the tribe. Perfect. Alone, for a few precious minutes. Please. Elias whispered to himself. Trust me. Trust me. With careful steps, he emerged from the shadows. Leora froze, eyes wide as she saw him. He raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. I won't hurt you, he said in soft, simple words. Her eyes narrowed, uncertain, fear flickering across her face. She had been taught all humans were weak, or worse, dangerous. But there was something different in his gaze, something honest. She tilted her head, listening. You are a human, she said cautiously. Her voice trembled, but it carried curiosity too. Why are you here? Alone in the forest? I crashed, Elias admitted. Ship broke. No one left. No one but me. He looked around. And now, I want someone to be with. Not to control. Not to command. Just to share life. Leora blinked. Her lips twitched, almost forming a smile. This was unlike anyone she had ever met. No force, no threats, no anger. Just a human who wanted companionship. A strange thought touched her heart. Could this human, so different from her people, be what she secretly longed for? Before she could respond, the chief's voice thundered from the camp. Leora, where are you? Panic laced his words. Elias's stomach tightened. Time was short. Follow me, Elias whispered. He held out a hand. Hesitation flickered in her eyes, but something stronger, curiosity, hope, made her take it. The forest swallowed them both as they ran, branches scraping their faces, leaves whispering overhead. Elias led her through hidden paths only he knew. Each step was careful, avoiding patrols, traps, and dangerous creatures. Leora ran beside him, her fear slowly giving way to wonder. She had always dreamed of freedom, but never thought it could exist. Not like this. Not with a human beside her. Finally, they reached a small clearing by a waterfall, a place Elias had used to rest and hunt. He breathed heavily, chest aching, but relief warmed him. Safe. For now, he said. Leora looked around. The beauty of the place softening her fear. The water shimmered like glass, and the air smelled sweet, untouched by the harshness of her tribe. You saved me, she said quietly, almost a whisper. I always dreamed of a human husband. I never thought. Her voice trailed off, eyes shining with something she had never admitted aloud. Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. I'm not sure what this will be, he admitted. But I do know. You won't be alone anymore. Not as long as I can help it. And, for the first time in months, Elias felt hope. A bond had begun born, not from power, but from trust, from understanding, from the simple truth that sometimes humans could offer something the strongest alien could not. Empathy, cleverness, and a heart brave enough to act. As the suns rose higher, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold, Elias and Leora sat by the water, catching their breath. They did not speak much. Words were not necessary. Each understood the unspoken truth. Survival alone had led them to each other. And in a wild, unforgiving world, that was perhaps the rarest and most precious thing of all. But in the distance, dark shapes moved among the trees the tribe was searching. Their journey was far from over. Danger loomed. Yet Elias did not feel fear like before. With Leora by his side, he felt something stronger. Determination. And Leora, for the first time in her life, felt she had a choice. A real one. The forest whispered around them. The humans were no longer just victims of circumstance, they were beginning something new, something dangerous, but something extraordinary. The forest around them was alive with movement. Whispers of leaves, distant cries of strange creatures, and the occasional snapping of twigs underfoot. Elias led Leora carefully, his eyes scanning for any sign of the alien tribe. He knew they would not give up easily. These were hunters, warriors trained in tracking and killing. But Elias had something no alien had. Human ingenuity. We need to move fast, Elias whispered, glancing at Leora. They will find us soon, if we stay in one place. Leora nodded, fear still flickering in her eyes but now mixed with determination. She had never run like this before, had never trusted someone enough to follow blindly into the unknown. Yet something about Elias inspired confidence. He did not rely on strength alone. He observed, planned, and adapted. That combination made him dangerous in ways her tribe had never considered. They moved through a narrow valley, the ground uneven and slick with moss. Leora stumbled once, and Elias caught her arm. "Careful," he said softly. "One mistake, and they could be on top of us in seconds." Her heart pounded, but she listened. She realized something about this human. He did not treat her as a prize or a tool. He treated her as an equal. She could see the truth in his eyes. He valued her, not for what she was in the tribe, but for who she was. Hours passed. They hid during the hottest part of the day, under thick vines. Resting near a stream, Elias used this time to teach Leora how to move quietly, how to sense danger, and how to use the forest to their advantage. She learned quickly, absorbing every tip, every subtle gesture. "You are smart," she said, amazement in her voice. "Even my people, they never think like this. Only fight." Elias smiled faintly. "Strength alone is not enough," he replied. "Brains, patience, planning, those are what keep you alive." Leora looked at him differently now. The fear she had felt when he first appeared had not vanished, but it had shifted. She saw someone who could survive, someone who could protect and guide not through force, but through understanding. As night fell, they made camp in a small clearing. Elias built a fire, careful to keep it low, and used the embers to cook some small creatures he had caught earlier. Leora watched, fascinated by his methods. She had never seen anyone cook with such patience, such care. "You make it look easy," she said. "Experience," Elias replied. "When you are alone for months, you learn quickly. Every mistake could be your last." For a moment, silence fell between them. Then Leora spoke, almost shyly. I always wanted freedom. And, maybe, a human husband. I never thought it could happen. Not really." Elias looked at her, his mind racing. This was dangerous territory. He could not promise her anything. Not yet. "We are far from safe," he said carefully. "We need to survive first. Then, we can think about what comes next." Suddenly, a rustle came from the trees. Elias froze, signaling Leora to be silent. Shadows moved between the trunks. Scouts, from her tribe. They had been careful, but the humans' scent and tracks were not impossible to follow. "They are close," Elias whispered. "Stay behind me." The scouts stepped into the clearing. Their eyes glowed in the firelight, scanning for any sign of the humans. Elias had anticipated this. He grabbed a handful of dirt and tossed it toward the opposite side of the clearing, creating a small cloud. The scouts hissed and turned, giving him and Leora just enough time to slip into the dense underbrush. They ran, hearts pounding, feet cutting through undergrowth, until they reached a stream. Elias paused, listening. No sounds behind them now. "We need a hiding place," he said. "Come." They climbed up a rocky slope, Elias using vines and roots to pull himself and Leora up. At the top, he found a cave, hidden behind a thick wall of hanging moss. Inside, the air was cool and damp, but it offered protection. "This will do for now," Elias said, guiding Leora inside. Leora sank to the ground, exhaustion overtaking her. Elias crouched nearby, sharpening a small blade. "You are stronger than you think," he said. "Even when you feel weak, you can keep going. Humans, we have a way of surviving when others give up." Her eyes met his. There was admiration, awe, and something else, an emotion she had never felt before. Respect. Not for his size, not for his strength, but for his mind and his heart. Over the next few days, they traveled cautiously, avoiding main paths and hunting in small bursts. Elias taught her how to use simple traps, how to move silently, and how to read signs of danger in the forest. She learned quickly. Her natural agility combined with his instructions, making them a formidable team. One evening, as they rested by a small pond, Leora asked, "Why do you care about me? My people. They would kill me for trusting you. And yet, you risk your life for me." Elias paused, looking at the reflection of two suns in the water. "Because being alone for so long changes you," he said, "and because I see someone who deserves better. You are not just the chief's wife. You are Leora. And I want you to choose. Not because of fear, but because it is right for you." Her heart skipped a beat. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever looked at her and seen her. Not the title, not the cage of her life. She felt warmth, hope, and something dangerous trust. But danger was never far away. One morning, the distant roar of the chief's warriors echoed through the trees. They had tracked them, relentless as predators. Elias's face hardened. "Time to move," he said. "We cannot fight them head-on. We have to be smarter." Using hidden paths, clever diversions, and traps they set days before, Elias led them through the forest like a shadow. He used every trick he had learned: rocks to create false trails, vines to slow pursuers, even simple illusions with reflections in the water to confuse their trackers. Leora watched, amazed. "You think of everything," she said. "Even when we are weak, you find a way." Elias smiled faintly. "That is what humans do. We survive. We adapt. And, sometimes, we protect what we care about." Days passed. They faced hungry predators, treacherous terrain, and moments of despair. But through it all, Leora's trust in Elias grew. She began to see that humans were remarkable not for their strength, but for their courage, creativity, and ability to care in ways the aliens could not understand. One night, as they camped on a cliff overlooking a vast valley, Leora finally spoke her heart. I never thought I could feel safe. But with you, I feel something I never knew. Something like hope." Elias looked at her, the weight of their journey visible in his eyes. "We are not safe yet," he said softly, "but we are alive. And together, we can face what comes next." She nodded, leaning slightly closer. It was not love, at least. Not yet, but it was trust. It was connection. And in a world ruled by power and fear, that was already extraordinary. As the two suns dipped behind distant mountains, the valley below darkened. The humans sat together, silent but united, knowing the chase was far from over. But Elias and Leora had learned something vital. Together, they could survive anything. The forest whispered around them, alive with unseen dangers, but also with promise. The journey had only begun, and Elias, the human who had once been alone, now carried not just himself, but someone who had always dreamed of more. And Leora, she had found the strange, daring hope that only a human could bring.